How big is the illicit tobacco problem in Malaysia? Does it even matter to talk about it? Let us find out. To discuss the illicit cigarette trade in Malaysia, the cigarette tax matter, I'd like to introduce you Ms. Wency Bui. Ms. Wency Bui is a senior lecturer at the Department of Economics and Corporate Administration, Faculty of Accountancy, Finance and Business at Tunku Abdul Rahman University College. And she received her bachelor's degree in economics from the Northern University of Malaysia. She completed her Master's of Economics and PhD from University Putra, Malaysia. Her research interests focus on tobacco economics and econometric modeling. And Wency also has collaborated actively with researchers in health economics, particularly tobacco economics, and published a few articles, book chapters, and working papers. Wency is also actively involved with a non-government organization, the Malaysian Women's Action for Tobacco Control and Health, or MyWatch, to combat smoking problems in Malaysia. At the same time, she was also appointed as technical member under Malaysia Framework Convention on Tobacco Control since 2016. She is currently joining as research fellow for advancing tobacco taxation in Southeast Asia at the Ateneo de Manila University in the Philippines, studying cigarettes tax avoidance and tax evasion in Malaysia. And as a research fellow for Southeast Asia Tobacco Control Alliance's 20th Anniversary Fellowship Program in Tobacco Control in 21 at Siatka, Thailand, studying the tobacco tax policy and illicit cigarette trade in Malaysia. Friends and colleagues, let us all welcome Dr. Wency Bui. The floor is yours, Wency.
Thank you, Aaron. Good morning, everyone. So today we will talk about this illicit cigarette trade in Malaysia. So we want to look at it. Does the cigarette tax matters or not? So first, we could see, as we know that tobacco use is the leading cause of preventable death. It imposes a heavy burdens to the country in terms of the direct medical costs and the productivity loss. And we also know that tobacco use has increased the number of tobacco attributable deaths to more than 8 million per year globally. And 80% of this death happens in low and middle income countries. And in Malaysia, according to our latest National Health Mobility Survey, in 2019, there is 21.3% of adults who aged 15 years old and above. Approximately 4.88 million Malaysians are currently smoking. And we could see here, which is for the male, we have a higher proportions of male is currently smoking compared to female, which is slightly low. It's quite low here, which is only 1.2%. But however, you can consider that this is a very serious, and so in our Malaysian government, we actually do implement various of tobacco control policy to make sure that we could fight with this, the tobacco use. So it is undeniable that this tobacco tax policy always play a significant role in reducing the cigarette demands. An effective taxation policy would reduce cigarette demand, at the same time generates additional tax revenue for the government. However, the excise tax rate in Malaysia has remained 14 cents per stick since November 2015. So as we could see, that this excise tax is always the one that could effectively reduce the cigarette use. So we also can see the inelastic of cigarette demands, not just only in Malaysia, is in almost in every country, it's able to generate the extra tax revenue for all the countries. So the same things in Malaysia, we can see that the tax revenue actually is increasing, and whilst the excise tax rate is increased. However, we could see after 2015, the excise tax revenue is reducing. This is due to the excise tax rate has remained for these few years. So that's why we strongly encourage that the government to increase the excise tax for now. And also we can see if it doesn't increase the excise tax rates from the nominal, which seems like it's a constant line, it's a constant trend, which is you thought that it's not increased. But then if it doesn't increase consistently, therefore it doesn't catch up with the inflation rate. So that's why you can look from the yellow line there, the inflations. If we account with the inflations, we could see that the real excise tax rate actually is decreasing. So that's why this is important, that if we could increase the excise tax rate consistently to catch up with the inflation rate. So the balance you could see here, the excise tax rate have remained for 5 years, but yet the tobacco industry is still claiming that the high excise tax rate is the main factor promoting the widespread of illicit cigarette trade in Malaysia. The tobacco industry has always used the pricing issue as a tool to negotiate with the governments in regulating the tobacco control policy, particularly on taxations. So they're not just only telling us that the price, the tax is the one that increased the tax, illicit trades from their report and so on, but actually they also fund, or maybe they're involved with certain of the study to tell you that's how serious of this illicit cigarette trade in Malaysia. So these estimations actually are questionable, especially when the tobacco industry commissions this industry. And these all studies usually are absence of the explanations on the technology used. Let us look what we have in Malaysia. First, we have this research company, International Tax and Investment Center, joined together with the Oxford economists. These two research companies actually they come out about this illicit cigarette trades in Malaysia from 2012 to 2015. So of course, they are not only do for Malaysia, they do for ASEAN country. But this surprisingly, until 2015, suddenly that's the ITIC that is suddenly tell us, they announced they wanted to cut in ties with the tobacco industry by asking the tobacco industry to resign from its boards and decline sponsorship from the tobacco industry. But this did not stop this Oxford economy to continue their research, which they continue publish for the illicit tobacco indicators. Again, they estimate the magnitude of illicit tobacco against for 2016 and 2017 alone. Other than this Oxford economy and ITIC, we also can see Oxford economies that continue this study and telling us that Malaysia is the one that has the highest illicit cigarette trade in Malaysia. So you could see when I collect the data compared to these 9 ASEAN countries, I noticed that there's stated that Malaysia have 55.5% of illicit market share. Compared to those other countries, which is that you could see there is green color one, which means the case is not as serious as Malaysia, and Malaysia is more than 50%. Other than that, from ITIC and OE, and we also have some other study that actually published in BAT Malaysia, one of the big tobacco company, British American Tobacco Malaysia website, and we found that there is certain this Nelson's report that is listed in their website. So in this report, we could see this Nelson company, actually they're funded by CMTM. So this CMTM actually is composed with 3 big tobacco companies in Malaysia, which is BAT Malaysia, Philip Morris International, and also JTI, Japan Tobacco International. So these 3 companies, actually they commission funds this study and do this illicit cigarette study for Malaysia and tell you that Malaysia has a very serious illicit cigarette trade, and BAT always claim that is because of the excise tax rates. So we could see from here, Nelson's and ITIC and OE, actually they have a similar result. So you could see from the trend here, basically Nelson started earlier, which is start from 2003 and currently is stated that we have 63.8% that is illicit share. So it's a very, very high one. But for ITIC and OE, they stopped their analysis to 2017. And then we are not just only have these 2 companies doing these illicit cigarette trade estimations. We have another one's data that is from Euromonitor International. From their websites, I found that their data stated that Malaysia also have a very serious illicit issue. So from here, we can see until the 2018 year, we reached the peak year, which is around 12.8 billion stick. And for 2019, which is around 12.5 billion sticks of illicit cigarettes. So it's quite a lot. So it's important to always check the reliability of the estimations on the illicit cigarette trades that involved by the tobacco industry. since they always claim that the illicit cigarette trade is because of the tax and so on, and they also always warns the public that is the cheap illicit cigarettes, the easily to get the illicit cigarette, that will harm the government to collect the tax revenue. So they always tell that increased tax on cigarettes will increase the price, and therefore it will force your smoker to smoke cheaper illicit cigarette. However, there is a lot of study available that shows that the claims by these tobacco industries are not correct. It's not true. And also we have various of studies showing that these all estimations actually are not reliable. So you could see actually these all studies are well published on everywhere. We can see like we have SECA doing this all to tell you that's how this ITIC and OE, how they influence the publics by inflates their estimations. And we also have some other studies that is on high impact journal showing that about the Euromonitor data problem and so on. So now this inspire us that's to do this research together with Philippines Ateneo School of Governments. We do this analysis to find out, is it really that our Malaysians have such a huge illicit share? So we conduct a gap analysis, and we found out that no, the illicit cigarette trade is not as high as claimed by the tobacco industry. So I compare my research, which is in the trend line here, the line here, this is my estimations. And then we compare with Euromonitor data and Nielsen's and also ITIC and OE. When we compare to their result, we notice that particularly in the last few years here, we can see our estimate is lower than as what they claim. So from here, we can see the claim is the illicit cigarette share in Malaysia, the bar one is really, really high. Even though we adjust for this under-reporting consumptions problem, which is we add up from our estimate another 10% to look at how serious of this illicit cigarette trade in Malaysia. But you found out that you could see from the last 5 years, especially for the last 5 years when the government did not increase the tax, but it's not as high, the illicit is not as high as claimed by them. So from here, we did not stop us to do the research. We continue to do our second part, which is we look for it, is it the legal retail price is the one that is increased the illicit cigarette trade in Malaysia or not? So we conduct a simple time series analysis, and we found out that the price is not the one that increased the illicit cigarette trade. It is not significant at all. But the one that is significant in reducing the illicit cigarette, we found out is on the institutional quality. We use the transparency index and examines that the illicit cigarette trade could reduce if the country have a better institutional quality. So that's why from here we can tell you that institutional quality was the significant determinant of illicit cigarette trade in Malaysia. In other way around, very simple one, you could just think that lower corruption level would ensure lower illicit cigarette trade in the country. Or maybe you also could think that when you have a better governance indicator, which means you also were able to reduce the illicit cigarette trade in the country. So from here, we can see the tobacco industry claimed the higher taxations will increase the retail price of legal cigarettes, eventually leads to higher illicit trade. Is nothing more than a false notion. So don't believe the tobacco industry. We prove with you with our empirical study and tell you that price is not the one that is driving illicit cigarette. So for a second one, we would like to look at this, the cigarette demand and consumptions in Malaysia. So we conduct some simple time series analysis. Again, we look at it from the demand. The demand, which is we will look from the sales, the cigarette sales data. From the cigarette sales data, and we also compare with how if we combine with illicit and legal sales for consumptions, cigarettes consumptions in Malaysia. And we want to look at it, how the price works on these two, sales and consumptions. As we recall back in Malaysia, actually we have a few existing studies, which is also concentrate on the impact of retail price on the cigarette demand. So it's already well published in all the high impacts and good journal. So this study actually also shared a similar result, which we can find out that yes, higher price could reduce the cigarettes demand. So we have the inverse relationship between the price and quantity demand. And also another one's important thing that is the inelastic demand, which is encouraged, is a very good point to encourage the governments to increase the excise tax because of the inelastic nature. When you have a higher price, you could generate more tax revenue. And of course, this all tax revenue, once you generate it, then you can use it for others health promotions funding. So in our study, we also do the time series analysis again, and we found out we are sharing the similar result with the existing study. So we found out that the retail price of cigarette is statistically significant in reducing the legal cigarette sales in Malaysia. So we found out that the 10% increase in the real cigarette price per pack in the long run would decrease the cigarette sales by 7.7%. So then we also found out that in the short run, actually the price is not working in the short run, but it effectively reducing the cigarette demand in long run. So in this evidence, we could suggest that increase in price cigarettes through increase the taxations would lead to increase the government tax revenue, since it is inelastic demand. The inelastic demand, we could look from this, when 10% increase in real cigarette price, then it could reduce by 7.7%, which is smaller than 10%. Therefore, this is inelastic demand. So definitely we could generate more tax revenue. On the other hand, the price of illicit cigarette price on cigarettes consumptions, as I mentioned just now, for the sales, we look from the legal one, right? From the sales legal one, tax paid, and we look from the cigarettes consumption, which is we not only look from the cigarette sales, but we also look from the illicit. We sum it up together and we do the analysis, and we found out that yes, the price is also significantly reducing cigarettes consumptions. So our government should not worry about this, which means when you increase the higher tax on cigarettes, the price goes up and up the cigarette sales, and as well as these consumptions will be reduced. But overall, the consumption will reduce in a slightly smaller number, which is by 3.7%. However, it's still a good number, which means when we increase the excise tax, definitely we could save the country fighting the tobacco use, can have a lesser cigarette sales, demands, and consumption. So definitely we suggest that higher legal retail price would reduce for both sales and consumption. So overall here, I would like to remind for what we have done for our 3 research here. First, the study reviewed the estimations made by this study for the market share of illicit cigarette is lower than study done by industry estimates. As we mentioned just now, the ITIC and the OE, their research has been claimed that is unreliable, since there could be collects their pack survey from those hotspots. So that's why the estimate is much more higher. And then for Euromonitor, their data has been well criticized by those high peer review journals. Stated that they actually manipulates the data. So sometimes you could see the data that downloaded in the previous year is different for the current year. So that's why we have to be very careful when we're using ITIC OE and also Euromonitor data. And for Nelson data, clearly in the report, they stated to you that actually the study all is funded by the tobacco industry. And for Malaysia case, it is funded by the BAT, PMI, and also JTI. Their study also well reviewed and stated that actually they also collect from the hotspots. And we have to be careful. If those studies that is funded by the tobacco industry, actually it will follow from their directions, which is this, they want to let you know that when you have a higher tax rate, you will have a higher illicit. So we have to be very careful and we should not trust their estimates. So from our second study here, we found out that the price indicator is not driving the illicit cigarette trade in Malaysia. So this totally that we prove that those industry claim is not correct. So we have to be careful. We have to have our own estimates to do our own analysis. Then only we can know that actually the tobacco industry tries to influence, tries to negotiate with the government to not increase the cigarette tax. So then From our estimations, we can tell you that since we examine the cigarettes demand against and as well as the consumptions model, and we found out higher excise that is definitely is good to encourage since it will be reduced for both. So the last one, which is not just only the higher excise tax rates could be reduced the cigarette sales and consumptions, but the inelastic nature could generate for more tax revenue, especially for now we are in this COVID-19 pandemics. If we have more tax revenue, therefore we can use it to help in our crisis, and we could fund for other health promotions at the same time. So the tax revenue that we could generate is really, really important for now. So well, this we have to remind to our governments again, and not just only for Malaysia, for many countries, which is well, the cigarette smuggling and other crimes accompanied by imposed grave problems. Reducing or eliminating cigarette tax is not the correct way to solve the problem. So Malaysia's government can persuade a stronger tobacco tax policy without being swayed by the idea of influx of illicit cigarettes, as claimed by the tobacco industry. So we can see from the picture here, we found out that those countries that who increased tax actually did not increase the illicit cigarette trade. So like we have the case here, like we have Australia, Indonesia, Philippines, and Pakistan. So these all countries proves that when they increase tax, the illicit cigarette trade did not increase. So the government actually, we can know that it's very important for us to implement the strategy outlined in the FCTC protocol to eliminate the illicit trade in tobacco products. So such as the one of the very famous one, which is we have tracking and tracing. This is a very good point to track the illicit trade. So last, our estimates shows that the increase in cigarettes price through increased taxations will lead to an increase in government revenue, as well as the reductions in sales and consumption cigarettes among Malaysians. So an effective tobacco taxation policy here, not only for more tax revenue, but it will reduce for cigarette demand and consumption. So effective taxations, it must be always reduce the affordability of cigarettes. So a consistent increase in tobacco tax will be recommended for our Malaysia. So then that's all for my